let's talk about Health New Zealand and their mismanagement. There's a really interesting thing going on at the moment with Christopher Bishop and his buddies. And one of those things is that all of a sudden, Chewy, you'll be surprised about this. All of a sudden, though, we're not so worried about the 14 layers. You know how they made a really huge deal about these 14 layers? Like they brought it up and 14 layers of management, and they've made it like it's a part of the foundation of what they're going through at the moment, how important it is to point out to everybody that there's 14 layers of management. And gosh, look at these incompetent people who used to run this place with 14 layers of management. And actually now that they're struggling to define their 14 layers of management, all of a sudden, Chewy, they're like, oh, let's not focus on the 14 layers. It's kind of more about what we're saying is there's just too much bureaucracy. They're sort of running away from it in a pretty massive way. So breakfast this morning had Kieran McInulty and also the Bish, and they were talking about this, and I don't often play the introduction as well, but one of the important things that I think Daniel Faitawa said was there are claims by some that what Luxon is doing is actual disinformation. So I think we'll get that as well from Daniel, and then we'll go into the question and we'll look at a few clips.
Dr. Curtis Walker, a kidney specialist, told the New Zealand Doctor that the Prime Minister's claims were disinformation, including their assertion that there are 14 layers of management. It certainly ignited political debate, and so here for more is our captain's panel of National's Chris Bishop and Labour's Kieran McInulty.
I was a bit pissed with this morning, to be honest, because they talk about this and then they spent time talking about what sport would you like to play at the Olympics. And I know breakfast television is not going to be, but you don't get access to these guys very, very much. Oh, what are you going to spend your tax cut on? And what sport would you like to play at the Olympics? I was like, dudes, these guys, you got to hold them to account, whoever it is, and you're just wasting, half of your interview talking to them about stupid shit.
Morning to you both.
Good morning. Hey, mate. How's things?
Oh, mate.
Good. Chris Bishop, I'll come to you. Let's set the records. How many layers of management are there?
Well, my understanding is 14. It will obviously depend on the precise circumstances, but it can be up to 14 between the chair and the...
And this is something important that some people missed. Remember, they're saying 14 layers of management. That's important, right? Management. Because I'll show you a little number that they put out, which included like the patient and the doctor. That's not management.
And the patient. But look, whether or not it's 13 or 15 is kind of not really the point. The point is that's too many.
It's been the point.
Stuff in the middle there, and we want to make a much more direct relationship between Health New Zealand and the patient, and focus on the front line. And that's what Professor Lester Levy, who's the commissioner who's been put in place to Health New Zealand, has been told to sort out. He agrees that the organisation is too bloated. Those are his words, and he's very focused on that. And the government is...
that guy who's into privatisation says that this government agency is too bloated, that guy.
Responsive to that.
See, Chris Bishop, you say it's not the point about how many layers of management, but that is the exact point, because Dr. Curtis Walker is saying it's not true. So someone here is not telling the truth.
No, my point is that there are 14 layers of management, but whether it's 13 or 15 is kind of missing the point.
What if it's 4? What if it's 8? If it was, let's say it's 7, then you're exaggerating by 100%.
About making sure we get the focus on the front line, and the kind of fixation on 14 or 13 or whatever the number is, and it will depend a little bit depending on the circumstances you're talking about. The point is there's too much middle management and too much bloated bureaucracy in the organisation, because when they merge...
So this is the thing, if you've got a good case, you don't need the bullshit. You don't need the lies. You don't need the exaggeration. I mean, Kieran talks in this interview as well about saying there was problems with the THBs. So we know there's problems with the THBs. We know that it's not working perfectly. So if you then exaggerate and lie on top of it, then you get questioned as to why you're exaggerating and lying, and you become untrustworthy to find a solution. I'm sure we've all had people who exaggerate things, whether that's because they've listened to the disinformation dozen or something, but they exaggerate things when it's okay to say that this is not working well. And if it's not working well, you can just talk about that rather than then trying to make it look like it's even worse. What comes to mind is, for example, Donald Trump's ear. You know, he said that the top third of his ear had been blown off. There's been plenty of photos with the ear fully intact. Doesn't take away at all from there was assassination, but you don't need to then up it. You can just talk about the very near miss. You know what I mean? And it feels like these guys are spending all of their time the national-led government, talking about how terrible the last lot were, exaggerating it. And then the conversation does turn into it. Why are you exaggerating? Why aren't you giving us accurate information rather than let's get this thing solved, Chewy?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that they're kind of brushing over the part that the big changes that they were doing with the DHBs and stuff was to remove duplication.
Yeah.
And remove potential layers. Now, I'm going to preface this by going, I am not sure whether this is the list, but I've seen it circulating
the RNZ
around.
one? There's one on RNZ.
Well, I'm not sure if it's from RNZ because I didn't see it attributed, but that is what I've seen.
Yeah, you're missing a couple down. Oh, why don't I steal it back off you and do that?
Oh, have you got it?
Yeah,
there we go. Yeah, cool. So it's you.
Yeah.
So I mean, the health sector is enormous, and just looking at that and the size of the organization and that sort of thing, that doesn't seem like bloat.
Well, but okay. But the other thing is, I'm sorry for being skeptical, but manager, assistant manager,
so those
team leader. Why don't you actually identify the role, general manager? Because the other thing about management, right? Let's say it's this team lead and assistant manager. You can also get management that's all on the same level. So it's not like a stacking of this. It's more, so like the CEO's at the top, and then there might be a level of 3 or 4 or 5 under them, and then under them there might be more. That would only be a 3-tier management structure. So they're making it seem like it's a 14-tier management structure. I almost guarantee it's not. But hello, group directions operator, general manager of what? You know, it's like, I don't accept that this is enough for them to provide, because for a start, a patient is not part of the management team. Neither is the team member, i.e. the nurse or the doctor. They're not part of the management team, you know? So it's someone's padded this to make it fit after someone said 14. And so give it to me. Who are these people? Patient. Okay. Nurse. Okay. Who's the team supervisor over the nurse? What's their title? Yeah. Who's the team leader over that? What's totally. To be able to show us.
Yeah. Show me. Don't show me a bullet point list, which gets you conveniently your 14 layers. Show me an organizational chart.
Yeah.
Show me that. Like when you see any organization and like a chain of responsibility or a chain of command, you see it as a almost like a tree.
Well, yeah.
And you can spotlight when you see it like that.
The other thing, when they talk about 14 layers between the patient and the CE or the CEO, you're like, what they're saying is kind of from the patient to the CEO. No, the patient never needs to get that far. The patient probably never needs to get beyond the team leader so there's like a little bit there, which is the practical, and there's the administrator. It's just because it's not singing true, because it's not true. It takes away from a government going, so we can now solve it. Because you're saying we're going to solve the problem, which you're exaggerating and doesn't exist. So what are you actually doing? We'll keep going, because they do then speak to Kieran, and they ask him the question, did bureaucracy sort of blow up under Labor? And this is his response.
Well, it's interesting.
His face is one that says, what are you talking about? But this is exactly what National did. It was exactly the point they wanted to get out there. Watch his face making some kind of, some kind of scrunching his face up like this. No, it wasn't. It 100% was. Whereas how do we all know, the public, about the 14 layers? Because you guys publicised and advertised it.
Point 2 days ago, when the Prime Minister and the Health Minister were making this point to justify the decisions that they'd made, and then when it was pointed out that someone's telling porkies, actually, that's not really the point, is it? Let's look at other things. But the fact of the matter is that the DHB system wasn't working. It certainly wasn't working in areas like Waited Upper, where you get people that can't access the treatment they need because they happen to live in the wrong area. You get people that live outside the arbitrary boundary that can't go to their closest hospital. They needed to go to a different hospital. It just wasn't working. And
but
as
Kieran,
long
to be
as the
fair,
reforms...
you were in government for 6 years.
Yeah.
Oh, that's why we changed it.
Yeah.
So the DHB system wasn't working, and that's why we did the reforms. And so now if you live outside a major centre and you get crook, you go and get the treatment that you need, not based on where you live, but based on your need. And that's exactly how it should be. Now, whether there's efficiencies available in there, absolutely, that's a genuine discussion. But let's not try and paint it out to be something other than as a basis of the decisions that have been made. There are not 14 layers of management. As your news outlet pointed out, you can't count the patient as a layer of management.
So we'll go straight into the last clip, because the last clip also then picks up on this. And I want to highlight it. I've already tweeted about this today, if you follow me on Twitter, about what Bishop says about this conversation now and the word he uses to explain it. And then we'll wrap up, Joey.
This debate is pretty facile. We should be focusing on the fact that despite billions being poured into health by the last government and including this government, and we put a record investment
we'll go
into health in this year's budget, and being poured into health by the last organisations, think about customer and the CE. But look, with respect, this debate is pretty facile. We should be.
So I just wanted to focus on that word for a sec. This debate is pretty facile. So then, Mr. Bishop, what did I show the footage for that? I'll do it again. I don't think I even did that, did I?
No.
I'll bring up the words again. Let's do it one more time.
Think about customer and the CE. But look, with respect, this debate is pretty facile. We should be focusing on the fact that despite billions being poured into health by the last government and including this government, and we put a record investment.
So the thing about that word facile, I wanted to focus on it because what Bishop's doing now is running away, right? Remember, how do we know about this debate? How do we know about the 14 layers? We know about the 14 layers because National, the Minister of Health, the Prime Minister, was talking about it. So, Mr. Bishop, if this is pretty facile, why the fuck did you guys bring it up? If this is a facile conversation, why did you bring it into the public square to debate? It seems it's only become facile when you've been called on your horse shit and haven't been able to respond. Then all of a sudden, Chewy, this debate is facile. We shouldn't do this. We should look to solve problems. I don't disagree with that, but you brought it to us. And now you're telling us we can't talk about it. There's no point. It's facile. Come on, please. Bish, please.
That needs to be a t-shirt. Yeah, it's real high school debate club sort of stuff. You know, you bring something on, you called on it. Oh, look, that's irrelevant. You know, I'm here to solve real issues. And it's like, well, that's a real issue when you brought it up. Yeah. When I'm questioning you on it now, it's not. Like, and you're going to chuck a $5 word like facile out there. Come on.
Yeah. All right. Let's just give it a bit more of the sincerity. Maybe he'll pull a rabbit out of the hat at the end, Joey.
This debate is pretty facile. We should be focusing on the fact that despite billions being poured into health by the last government and including this government, and we put a record investment into health in this year's budget and forward funding for the next 2 years into the health budget. We should be focused on the fact that Health New Zealand didn't have the financial controls in place. The board wasn't getting the right financial information. They went from running a surplus or projected surplus to a massive deficit in a factor of months. There weren't the controls in place and the monitoring being done. And some of that is the responsibility of the previous government. Some of it is the responsibility of the board. Some of it is a collective responsibility across the New Zealand political system. We should be focused on that because all New Zealanders deserve a health system that is functional. Kieran's right. People in Wairarapa deserve good health care. People in the Hutt Valley deserve good health care. And in the Hutt Valley right now, there's thousands of patients
but we agree with all this. So why are you guys going around poking the bear, offering facile arguments rather than just getting on with it? No one disagrees with this. So why don't you stop National getting these, what would you call them? They're basically culture war conversations to try and blame the last lot for where you're at today.
All right, just speaking.
So anyway, we didn't need to hear the end of that, I guess. So yeah, it annoyed me actually when I heard Bishop say this is facile because this was your guys' main talking point this week around the health system. And now, because you can't answer the questions, it becomes facile. It's a classic runaway, you know?
Maybe there's something that they'll learn out of this. I mean, I say that with my tongue firmly in my cheek.
Yeah.
That if you are going to mention something that is easily checkable,
yep,
someone will call you on it. Someone will check that thing. So now they're kind of working out as like, well, if we just use vibes, people are going to call us on that. So we use numbers. Oh shit, people are talking about whether that's true or not. fuck, we have to use real numbers.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yes, and they already know that any time they get asked to account for their spending or non-spending, they're also going to be reminded they're borrowing to fund $14 billion worth of tax cuts, and they're giving $3 billion back to landlords. So this is the thing, when they start talking numbers, Shuey, they've always got that kind of weight sitting just up behind them for any journalist to go, but hang on, if you can afford $17 billion total for these kind of reimbursements and tax cuts, why can't you do $130 million for these people? Like, why is that? So if they go to numbers, they're going to be stuck with that. And if they stick with vibes, they're going to be called out. So they're kind of screwed if they are, screwed if they aren't, if they do, if they don't.
I mean, it appears repeating, underlining, putting up in neon letters, having fucking pinwheels going off behind it. This government is cutting frontline services, absolutely gutting the public sector, stopping nurses from being hired, underpaying junior doctors,
Yeah.
borrowing to fund tax cuts for the property owning class. They are economic vandals.
Yeah.
There is no way that this stacks up. This is why so many people are screaming out about it, because none of these pricks that are doing it are going to be paying the price. It certainly doesn't help anybody sitting in a ward at the moment hoping for quality of care. It certainly doesn't help the nurses hoping that, Jesus, I hope we get some new nurses on deck soon so I can have a break or a holiday, or even just not be worked into the ground every shift.
Yeah.
Pulling extra overtime hours at the same time. The hospital saying, oh, we need people to do more overtime. Please don't do more overtime because we can't pay you.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes their email arrives in the same fucking week.
Yeah.
Like, it's a shambles. It's a shit show. These guys are rip-off grifting merchants that must know what they're doing. And it all seems to point to what was tried and was partially successful with the NHS in England, is that if we run this service down, then we can turn around and go, see, this shouldn't be public. Governments aren't good at running healthcare.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get the professionals in. Here's a professional I prepared earlier. He's got an investment fund and wants to buy about a half dozen hospitals. Hope it works out for everyone. It won't.
Yeah. No, Chewy, you're right to keep reminding us of that as well. The right constantly bang on about how government can't do things. They then get into government. They then pass policy that breaks the things, and then they sit back and go, see, we told you government can't do things, after they've actively put their finger or whatever it is, their weight on the scale to make it not work. And there's perfectly good examples. I mean, I was having lunch with someone today talking about some of the specialists around the hospitals are now having to do their own paperwork and own bookings and own appointments because the backroom people have gone. I'm like, yeah, that's where you want to put your $300 an hour specialist, getting them spending a couple of hours a day doing admin. That's what you want to pay them to do, hundreds and hundreds of dollars an hour. It's like, come on, bish, please. Someone says, speaking of bish, please, Peter's got a great one. You know how there's a gish gallop? What about the bish gallop? Peter. Nice one.
I mean,
thanks, Peter.
This, especially with us being tucked away all down here at the bottom of the South Island, we know that we're going to get left behind. This is one of the things that made the Dunedin Hospital rebuild so important.
Yeah,
as this was an investment in the South Island. You know, there's so many stories about, especially the birthing unit down in Southland, how far people had to go to give birth. There were kids being born in the back of cars somewhere around Balclutha and stuff like that. It was just absolutely nonsense for a developed country. Like, you say that governments can't do this. Governments did do this. There's a reason why we have a whole bunch of hospitals across this country that were built in the 50s and 60s. And that's why we're all having to spend the money now, because they need rebuilds. Yeah. They need to be brought up to spec. The reason, what was it? Was it Middlemore that had shit running down the walls?
Yeah, I think it's right, actually.
Yeah, Timaru Hospital about the same time. Dunedin Hospital, which is a marvel of absolute brutalist poured concrete ugliness. It's all around the same time.